Kevin Franke, the alienated spouse of mom vlogger turned criminal kid victimizer Ruby Franke, has quite recently recorded a pristine claim against Ruby's co-defendant, Jodi Hildebrandt. We separate the intricate details of this new suit. Welcome to the sidebar. Introduced by Tattle currently, all things considered, we have an update for you in the Ruby Franke case. Kevin Franke, the alienated spouse of Ruby, the previously well-known YouTuber kid victimizer, has now documented a claim against Jodi Hildebrandt, Ruby's co-defendant. Now, as you might review, Ruby and Jodi confessed to 4 includes of irritated kid maltreatment in Utah for how they treated Ruby's 2 most youthful youngsters who were remaining with Jodi at her home back in the mid-year of 2023. Keep in mind, they were genuinely, inwardly, and intellectually mishandled. It was totally nauseating. Ruby's most youthful child had the option to get away from Jodi's home through a window, hurry to a neighbor, and inspire them to call 11. The 2 ladies were captured, and after they conceded, they were each condemned to 4 successive terms now in Utah, the still up in the air by the appointed authority yet the leading group of exculpations, and paroles so fundamentally in the event that you crunch the numbers and you take a gander at the condemning rules and a portion of the limitations, you're essentially taking a gander at possibly 4 to 30 years in jail for every one of them. And what made this so curved and what we realized over the span of this case is that Ruby had joined Jodi in the Association, this life training program. That Jodi was an authorized psychological well-being guide that Ruby was recorded as a psychological wellness coach, and we have committed various sidebars to this case since it broke in August of 2023, and we did a full top-to-bottom breakdown half a month prior of this new proof that was all delivered. Prison calls, body cam, film cross-examination tapes gave a ton of understanding into the players in this story, and that remembered Kevin Franke for specific you see through the recording and the sound tapes. You come to discover that Ruby and Kevin, they had isolated. He guaranteed this was because of the impact of Jodi. On Ruby, he consented to live independently from Ruby and the children since he was informed that would be best. He didn't have the foggiest idea what was the deal with Ruby or the children. That is what he guarantees. And as a matter of fact, he asserts that he was stunned to discover that Ruby and his children were remaining with Jodi, and he was significantly more stunned to find out about this misuse presently. We should not fail to remember Ruby and Kevin. They were at the center of attention for a really long time. They had begun the famous 8 Travelers YouTube divert. Back in 2015, it reported the existences of them and their 6 kids turned out to be very dubious. A portion of the nurturing procedures came into question, and Kevin himself has gotten a ton of analysis online about the recordings. Yet additionally, how should he not realize what was occurring with his family? Yet I think the more you dig further into this case and you comprehend the power elements in sort of this distorted world they were living in, you get a superior comprehension of, I would rather not utilize the word conditioning yet in a manner that is nearly what it is. Yet anyway, you quick forward and Kevin has petitioned for legal separation from Ruby, seeing effectively battling to recover care of his children. And he has placed a ton of the fault on this on Jodi. Truth be told, I remember during the condemning hearing, you truly see Kevin Franke gesturing in court as Jodi's control is being portrayed, considering to the point that Kevin has documented a claim against Jodi Hildebrandt, and it was documented for his sake by his lawyer, Randy Kester, who we've talked with here on Sidebar and on Regulation on Wrongdoing. So, in view of that, how about we break this suit down? And let me simply first tell you, I'm not shocked that we are seeing this claim. Why Kevin had previously recorded a movement looking for compensation from Jodi Slope to Brand regarding the continuous emotional wellness treatment for his youngsters after what Jodi did. As a matter of fact, the court requested that Jodi could sell her home, however needed to put $100,000 retained to fulfill that compensation. So he believed that her should be on the snare for the assist that these youngsters with requiring. While offended party was living in Utah region, starting approximately May 22, 2023, litigant as a team with offended party's then spouse Ruby Franke, likewise mother of these 4 youngsters, moved the 4 minor youngsters to respondent's home in Ivins, Utah. So every one of the 4 kids were there. Recollect, this was during their parent division. Quote, neither respondent nor Ruby Franke educated offended party regarding the expulsion of the youngsters from the family home in Springville, Utah, to litigant home in Ivins, Utah. Again, as per Kevin, He had no clue about the thing was going on with Frankie and his children. As of now then, Kevin Franke integrates into this protest, practically word for word, the upsetting debts of misuse that were spread out in Ruby and Jodi's supplication arrangements about these two most youthful youngsters by the manner in which we're discussing EF and RF. EF was 9 years of age, and RF, this misuse happened over the range of when he was 11 to 12, so these two most youthful kids were restricted to the home. The ladies caused serious actual wounds for the kids. There was torment, there was actual work, there was hanging out in the intensity, refusal of food and water, disengagement. Frankie's child was tied up. They were informed that they were malevolent, that they needed to apologize. The children were skinny. They experienced extreme injuries. Genuinely, I would try and prefer not to go into it any further. We have previously done that so often. Yet you understand, and from that point the grievance proceeds to say how when Ruby's child was at long last ready to get away and rush to that neighbor's home, this child, RF quote, mentioned from the neighbor food water, that policing called so he could be brought to prison. This last option demand was on the grounds that he had been so taught by guard that assuming he got away from, he would go to prison definitely. That is a subject in these maltreatment cases, and we've discussed it before, that the casualties are made to accept that they are the ones who accomplished something wrong. The grumbling proceeds to express statement rather than prison anyway. Obviously, he was really focused on by people on call and ultimately confessed to the emergency clinic for serious malnourishment, his body being starved, and for therapy of his numerous and serious injuries and wounds. Then the objection discusses EF, Ruby's young little girl, and describes something that we saw on body cam video, quote, in the wake of looking through respondent's home, EF was in the end situated in a storeroom of the home, sitting on the floor. Specialists on call and policing her in a gaunt, food-denied condition, and albeit cognizant, was so sincerely damaged and apprehensive that she wouldn't speak with them solely after long periods of consoling her security, quieting her feelings of trepidation, and offering her food. She ate a whole pizza and part of one more. Were they ready to cajole her out of the wardrobe so she could be taken to the emergency clinic to treat her wounds, malnourishment, and profound state? No doubt that was probably the most frightening film that we saw. And the official at first, by the way, accepted that EF was a kid. Since her hair was so short, there was proof to recommend from Ruby's diary passages that she trim her girl's hair as a type of discipline. We cover a ton of claims here on Sidebar like this one from Kevin Franke, and that truly carries me to Moore and Morgan, the biggest injury law office in America, and our please support. So, on the off chance that you ought to get injured, I must underline this as much as possible. You should comprehend your legitimate freedoms and whether you're qualified for remuneration, since that injury could be worth huge number of dollars. And Morgan is a firm that won't hesitate to take on large insurance agency that occasionally lowball offers. No, Morgan will take a case to preliminary, assuming it's vital and you understand what they win. Huge decision of $12 million in Florida, $26 million in Philadelphia, $6.8 million in New York. These are fundamentally higher than the most elevated protection offers in these cases, and since Morgan are so client-centered, they need to make this cycle as simple for you as could be expected. That is the reason they've totally modernized it so it should be generally possible from your cell phone. From presenting your case to marking archives, to transferring materials, to conversing with your legitimate group. Checking whether you have a case just requires a couple of moments, so in the event that you're harmed, you can begin by effectively presenting a case at forthepeople.com. LC Sidebar, or you can dial pound regulation, that is pound 529 on your telephone. The objection makes sense of that the Division of Youngster and Family Administrations took guardianship of the children, quote, to address expertly the profound and mental state of the kids which had been so genuinely and unfavorably controlled, and taught the youngsters are dwelling in discreet homes, while in state's authority didn't realize that they're isolated. That is extremely miserable to contemplate that they're not together. In this part is particularly intense statement. The youngsters' characters' feelings and minds were so harmed and modified that it was past dad's capacity to re-establish them without proficient mediation of state's assets through the adolescent court. This through a recovery and supportive cycle coordinated and endorsed by the experts, getting the youngsters all together, re-establish his youngsters to his consideration in their family home. Importance: how he will get back. Care: father himself has followed the court cycle and has certifiably looked for his own routine of expert treatment to organize with the youngsters' therapy suppliers, as well as to acquire a comprehension of his kid's circumstances and needs, and how to best work with the reclamation of every one of his kids back to their previous status as blissful and sound people and of a cheerful and flawless family in their family home. All in all, it will take a great deal of work for both Kevin and the children to return to themselves and a way of recuperation after this. And it appears as though he is doing all that the court is requesting to do, including looking for help himself. The grievance then says statement: the purposeful and careless demonstrations of the respondent have been totally harmed and adjusted for the more regrettable. Kevin's marriage, the kid's mom, is in jail. His youngsters' all singular minds, characters, and ways of behaving are basically detonating his family and his own life. And Kevin was on to express that the result of what Jod did was predictable predictability, which is a particularly significant component in these sorts of common suits. You realize this would occur, or you ought to have realized this would occur, which carries me to the genuine cases or reasons for activity in the claim. Under the thing hypotheses would he say he is suing. This is an extremely expansive sort of legitimate case. And what he's contending here is that Jod participated in serious and unbearable lead and acted with foolish dismissal of the likelihood of making close to home trouble Kevin and the children. So you don't need to show that Jod expected to cause Kevin or the children's personal pain. Not that she fundamentally believed that should happen. However, that she carelessly ignored the possibilities of Kevin and the children experiencing profound misery due to what she did. And he says he did, as a matter of fact, experience close to home trouble as an immediate and general consequence of the respondent's illegitimate activities and oversights. Kevin has experienced past and future monetary and non-financial harms, agony and experiencing close to home misery, loss of personal satisfaction, and loss of happiness regarding life. So harms, incidentally, that is cash. That is the thing you ought to be made up for. And the causation component is the direct inexact outcome. That is causation. What Jod caused Kevin's damage, and this is the very thing that mischief is. And this is the very thing he lost all fundamental and a common case reason for activity. Number 2, this is an elective, take it, is careless curse of profound misery. So carelessness is about sensibility. And here, it's that Jod participated in direct that she ought to have known could make a preposterous gamble of making close to home trouble Kev. And it's not necessary to focus on purpose again causations there, that because of what she caused he endured damage, and that equivalent thought leads into the third and last case or reason for activity recorded in TH, is claimed carelessness. So Jodi had a legitimate obligation regarding Kevin and the children to act sensibly considering the present situation, and she penetrated that obligation of care that she penetrated it, and that caused Kevin damage, and like different counts, this caused monetary not non-financial harms, torment, experiencing close to home pain, loss of personal satisfaction, and loss of delight in life. Now there is one more fascinating part towards the finish of this claim that I need to call out, and it expresses, as per the Utah Rules of Common Technique 8A, that by the manner in which sets out what you need to spread out in a grievance to KO, to see a lawful case against another, so it resembles necessities you to need to place in an arguing in a protest, so it proceeds to say so compliant with 8A and 26C3 TH, his matter falls under level 3, and ought to be allowed revelation as per level 3. So I really looked this into under Utah regulation. My comprehension is this means claims that are guaranteeing $0.00000 or more in harms, which Kevin is by all accounts guaranteeing here, you will be conceded level 3 disclosure. So there is a diagram by levels in Utah, and it spreads out the hours required for testimonies, the days. To finish revelation, what number of solicitations do you get for proof? Level 3 awards you additional time and awards you more demands, essentially. So it's worthwhile for Kevin to be 3. Presently, it's difficult to get out whatever Jod will do with this claim, or how she will answer it. I envision that there is more cash that Kevin accepts Jod has here. If not, how could you sue? All things considered, it was accounted for that the house that she was allowed to sell was worth more than $5 million. So there is by all accounts a lawful road to get the cash that he accepts he and the children are qualified for. We will obviously keep on checking this claim and any advancements in the Ruby Franke and Jodi Hildebrandt adventure. That is all we have for you here on the sidebar, everyone. Much thanks for going along with us. As usual, kindly buy into Apple Webcast, Spotify, YouTube, any place you get your digital recording. I'm Jesse Weber. Thank you so much for watching Gossip Now.